Normally, though we have done a good research, we have to express that with a good way of academic writing. In order to complete that, we have to reduce the failures in us. In order to increase the ability of academic writing in undergraduate students, we have organized this project. In order to proceed this project, we have invited Professor Meththika Vithanage, who is a professor of Food Science and Technology Department in University of Chalwadhanapura. Nowadays, she is also working as a research professor of University of Queensland. So, dear madam, I cordially invite you to proceed the session to increase the ability of writing in undergraduate students. So I kindly invite Madam Professor Meththika Vithanage to proceed the session.
Okay, thank you, Helene. I'm not attached to the Food Science Department of University of Sri Javadhanapura though. I'm a professor working as a director in the Ecosphere Resilience Research Center, the University of Sri Javadhanapura. This center has been started 3 years back. Prior to joining University of Sri Javadhanapura, I was a researcher at the National Institute of Fundamental Studies. I hope you have heard about that institute. It is the only fundamental research institute in Sri Lanka. So we don't have any other fundamental research institutes in Sri Lanka other than National Institute of Fundamental Studies. So thank you very much for organizing this project. Thank you, Helene, for inviting me to give you a little bit of guidance on scientific writing. So, scientific writing is not that hard. You might think that it is very, scary and hard when it comes in when a lecturer asks you to write something. No, it's not that hard. So let's try to learn how to make it easier so that you will understand how to do it. So prior to going through scientific writing, I will be motivating you a little bit on whatever you are doing. So, you are, as undergraduates, you have passed A-levels and joined the university system and trying to gather knowledge to go ahead as a scientist to the public, right? So you are the future of this country, you are the future of this world. So I'm trying to activate you so that, you can perform well. You can become people like us maybe sooner than us. So first few slides, I will introduce you how to awake you, how to activate yourself from my experiences. So you need to discover yourself. That is very important when you're being an undergraduate student. You are in few years time, you will be going into the public, right? You will be going into the society. So when you go into the society, you will be like nowhere, because you are alone and a lot of people surrounding you, and many things people will expect from you. So you need to discover yourself to give the maximum output to the society. So when you discover yourself, you need to understand what are your interests, what are your values, what are your skills, what are the personality preferences that you have, and strengths. When you understand these strengths, skills that you have, you can perform well. You will be confident. So that is what we don't have as undergraduates in Sri Lankan system. We have good knowledge. We have good knowledge base. Fundamentals are very strong in Sri Lankan undergraduates. But the lacking is the strength, the skills that we have to present. We had to show, we had to sell yourself, right? So you need to discover these things from yourself. You need to understand what your skills are, what are your values, what are the personality preferences that you have, like whom you will be like to, and what are the strengths. So in my case, the careers that interest me was especially my basketball coach. And then the majors that I wanted to explore was not science. But Sri Lankan system is different. We had to go as per the A levels that selects you to go. So I had to end up in doing science in a university. So I was selected to a different university, but I went into Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka, because I wanted to do natural resources in my career. So you need to not only the studies, not only the subject knowledge that you need a lot of other things. You have to do a lot of extracurricular activities. So as undergraduates, I'm sure you are doing all these things. So I will give you some tips for you to learn how to, go into how to end up in the success. So in my case, my pathway to success is based on the maximum use of time that I have. So especially during this period, you have a pandemic situation where you are not able to move around. You are being stuck at house. So you can do a lot of writing, right? Writing different things. So these kind of things that you need to go ahead with, so that you can use the maximum from your time that you are spending. And do a hobby. Nowadays it's mostly, most of the time your hobby would be like going through social media, but try to make a different hobby, not like being in the phone all the time, being in the computer all the time. And you need to get mentor support. That is very important. You need to find a mentor that who will be giving you advices, showing you the pathway to go ahead with. And in my case, I always try to stand up for the truth. That is my satisfaction. So when I stand up for the truth, that's my satisfaction. So I am satisfied by that. And then proper planning should be there. So as undergraduate, if you learn to work towards a plan, that will help you to reduce the waste of time and energy. So it is very important for you to understand how to plan yourself. And then, in my case, there's no shortcuts for success, right? So you have to go through hardships. So these are some of the pictures. During my PhD time, I had to set up few wells in the eastern part of the country, around Kathankudi, Kalmune area, because I was studying the effect of tsunami on groundwater. During that time, we had the war going on, so I had to go through a lot of hardships. So that will help you. Don't find shortcuts to success, and you need to recognize the team members. That is very important. These pictures are showing my students who are my team members. So I work with my team, my students. So that is the secret to go to have a good success in our career. So be responsible, be strong. That is very important. That will bring you the confidence. And then the most important thing is be a legend. You can build a story and be unique, be you, so you will be different, right? So try to get these things into you. That will help you to uh, face a lot of hardships that you are going through. Everybody is going through a lot of hardships, especially during this time. So try to generate all these at least one or two of these success tips, so that you will be able to perform well, right? So because of these success tips, I'm here today talking to you. These are some of the awards that I have won during my career. So to show you my credentials to talk to you, to teach you scientific writing is because I am being considered as a highly cited researcher in Sri Lanka. So when you become a scientific writer, you will be publishing quite a lot of scientific articles. So these articles will be published in good journals, international journals. When you publish an article in an international journal or even a local journal, that will be read by many other people, right? Many other scientists. So when they read your paper, they will cite your paper in their papers. So that is we call as citations. So that is one index um, to measure a scientist, to measure the quality of a researcher. If you have high citations, right, that means your papers are being cited by some other people. So if you have a lot of citations, that means you are being considered as a researcher in the international arena, right? So you can see the map, the world map shown in this slide. So these blue dots are the places where my papers have been cited. So I have about uh, more than 10,000 citations. So that means more than 10,000 times my papers have been cited. So that based on that, they are generating an index called H index. So H index in my case is 46, which is the most highest H index in terms of environmental sciences field in Sri Lanka. So these are some of the benefits that when you become a good science writer, these are the benefits that you will get. So you will be considered as a well-recognized scientist. So I am teaching you, to become this kind of a scientist in the world. So you will be recognized. That is very important. So let's move into the to the subject today. Uh, so the background information that I gave you is to motivate you um, to understand any of you can become um, a world-class scientist, right? So I didn't think that I would be a world-class scientist, but with my, uh, um, efforts and with the mentorship that I got, and with my, hard working ability, I was able to go through um, the success, right? So I'm sure you have heard about the word of research. So what do you understand by a research? Research means that you are searching for knowledge, searching for new knowledge. That is what is called research, right? So when you search for new knowledge, if you are doing it in a scientific and systematic way, right? That we consider it as a research. So a study that you are doing in a scientific manner, in a systematic search, that is called as research, right? So you are carefully investigating through various facts to find something new. It's called research. So some people would think the study and research is same. It is not, right? How study can be different from a research is when you do a study, you may not do it in a systematic manner. It may not be a systematic search. So a study would be different from research. So in a study, you will not find new knowledge. You will just study whatever in the literature, right? So it may be a literature study, right? It may be let's say a questionnaire survey. So if you don't find anything new from the questionnaire survey, it will be a study. So to be a research, you must need something new, right? So that is the difference between study and research. So then, why do we publish research findings? That is very important for you to understand. What is the reason that you need to publish your research? There are few reasons. To make others aware about your research findings. You have done a research, you have put a lot of effort, you have spent a lot of time, you have put a lot of money into that particular research. So you have something new on your hands, right? So when you have something new with you, as a scientist, you must give it to the other scientists or give it to the general public in the world, right? That is very important. When you do that, it will increase the impact of your research, right? When you do a research, there is an impact from each of these research. At least for something, some small thing, there is an impact. So that impact will be increased when you publish or when you write your research, right? And it will increase the visibility, right? So when you publish a research paper in an international journal, let's say, you will increase the impact of Sri Lankan research. You will increase the visibility of Sri Lanka, right? So as scientists, that is the satisfaction you will get. So you need to do it, right? And that prevents duplication of research. When you publish your research, people will understand, okay, there have been a research done by this kind of people on this title, right? So that particular research will not happen again, right? Let's say I carry out a research and I publish some data, in a research paper. And one of you guys, maybe Helene, she is trying to write a research proposal to, let's say, to a granting body called National Science Foundation, maybe. Similar kind of research. She didn't know that I have already published that kind of a research. So when she goes through the literature, she understands that, this kind of a research has been already done. So she will not be able to, get this particular research progressing again, because that will reduce the cost of the country, right? That will reduce the cost of the institute, right? And to obtain endorsement from the international community. When you carry out a research, when you publish it in an international journal, that makes it valid, right? When you publish something in a journal, that makes your data to be valid, right? So if it is international, if it is local, never mind, your data is valid. So that will give you an endorsement to your data. That is very important when you become a researcher, because you need to have some validity for your research. And then you can advance your career, you can get promotions, you can get scholarships, you can get funding from various different organizations. As students, yes, even as students, yes. In my research students, I'm sending them for international conferences, not last 2 years though, but previously they were going for international conferences. They apply for research, travel grants. So when they apply for travel grants, if their capacity, if their credentials are, considerable, they get the travel grant. So there are many students that I, in my research group, they have got these travel grants and went into different conferences. And because since they have published a lot of research articles in high quality journals in the international arena, they have got PhD scholarships to other countries, right? So in my practice, I don't encourage any student to do PhD in Sri Lanka, because you really need to get exposure from international science. So for that, you need to get your PhD done in international context. So that will help you to have a lot of experiences. So my students, almost everyone, they go for PhDs with a scholarship because they publish a lot of research papers. So that is some benefits that you get. So you can do that too. So these kind of things I will skip. So this graph is very important. So I will describe the graph. So this graph is giving you the value of publishing in terms of personal satisfaction and professional value, right? So x-axis gives you the stages of publishing, right? So at the very beginning, you get the research idea, you or your supervisor or whoever, right? At the time of the research idea, the professional value is less and the personal satisfaction is also less because you just have the research idea. But when you start carrying out your research, you get data. Then your personal satisfaction becomes very high. Oh, I have a lot of new data. Good. Lot of new instruments that you have used to get data, right? And then you write the first draft, right? Your personal satisfaction is high. Your professional value is low because the data is not yet published. Then you submit the paper into a journal, right? But right away, when it published, your professional value become very high, exponential, but the personal satisfaction will not be that high. But in my case, every time when I get a publication, my personal satisfaction becomes higher, right? So it depends on person to person, but it is very important for you to understand publishing makes a big professional value to you and also a personal satisfaction, right? Then let's see what is publishable. Nowadays, there are so many journals and so many publications coming up for each year. So all these journals are now trying to find good quality publications so that their impact will be high. So for this issue, they need original and significant findings. So that is why I told you your research needs to be a research, right? It should produce some original and significant findings, right? So that is very important. That is very important. And if you have an original findings, if you have significant important findings, then it is very easy for you to publish. So in this case, undergraduates might not be able to do anything because your supervisor gives you the project, right? When your supervisor gives the project, if that project doesn't have any originality or any novelty, then it will be a little hard for you to get a publication out. But you can try, right? You can change the project slightly. When you read the literature, you can change the project slightly and get the originality in a way, right? And then the paper should be well organized and well written. The most important thing is it should be well organized, right? So the structure of the paper should be very nicely done. Well written, yeah, it is. And it is not that hard for you to write a good manuscript because, even I'm not a very fluent in English, but I will tell you how to, what is the tactic for you to understand and carry out good scientific writing, right? And the paper should be concise and complete, right? Concise and complete. Very brief, but complete. So those are the main points that you need to understand when you try to publish or when you submit a paper. So the originality should be there, and you have to show the originality to the reader. Okay, that is very important because you are selling your work, you are selling your research data. So you need to show, that is very important to the audience to sell it. So that is what it is called originality. Right? What not to publish? Reports you can't publish. Out of date work, it is very hard for you to publish. Duplications of previously published work, it is very hard for you to publish. And then incorrect and unacceptable conclusions, if you have, they are also very hard for you to publish, right? So these are the things that you need to understand, that you need to omit when you publish. So this we discussed the scientific paper must be written and published in a way that it must have new and original research results, true data, and it should be important and it needs to be comprehensible. So there are many different types of scientific writings, right? The first one is original research article. When you do a research, when you carry out a research, if you have new findings, then you can write a manuscript in which we publish it as an original research article, right? So when you publish some data from a research, that will become an original research article. And there are review articles. What are the review articles? What does that mean? In a review article, you are not reporting anything new. You are summarizing whatever the work that has been done already in the past by some individual or a research group, right? those are already have been published, but you get the data from those publications, you summarize them, you compare them with the other studies, you analyze them, evaluate them, criticize them, and write a review article, right? Review means that you are reviewing somebody. So you are analyzing that person, right? You guys are doing reviewing all the time, right? You review social media quite a lot, right? You go through Facebook, Twitter all the time, and you review whatever the posts that are in the social media, you review, right? You comment, you criticize, right? You analyze, you evaluate, right? So that is a review. So you are competent in doing that, right? So if you are competent in doing reviews in social media, you are definitely competent in reviewing scientific literature as well. Same thing you are doing, right? You are looking at a post on FB and you are reviewing, okay, this is not true. Okay, I should comment on this, right? A positive comment, it can be a negative comment, right? Whatever. Similarly, you are taking a scientific paper, you are carrying out the literature review, right? So you are reading many different papers and you are saying, okay, this paper looks good. It has good results. So you take that paper, you have another paper, you compare these two and you write the review article, right? So for writing review articles, you need to read like 100 of papers. And there are some other scientific writing work called short communication, or we call it technical paper. When you do a research, you are making a paper out of that research. But for that paper, it is not possible for you to write, discuss all your data, right? Let's say you are summarizing the most important data, and there is another few set of data which is also very important, but not as important as, not as novel as your data in the original research article, right? So you set that particular data set apart. You publish your original research article. Then you have this particular data set leaving behind, right? So you write a small paper from this small data set. So that small paper will only be 4 pages, and then you will be able to publish it as a short communication. We call sometimes these short communications as extended abstracts, kind of, right? Not like whatever the extended abstract that we publish in conferences. But these extended abstracts that we are publishing as short communication are also similar weight in original research article, right? So it's very important. And then there are conference abstracts, conference papers, and many more. So before you start writing, you need to evaluate your work by yourself, right? You need to evaluate and see whether is this sufficient enough for a full article, or is this will go as a technical note or a short communication, right? So this kind of self-evaluation is very important. How do you do this kind of self-evaluation? You have read many papers during your literature review. So you understand one particular paper must have this much of data, right, to be published. So that is how you do self-evaluation. Then you can ask your supervisor, or you can ask one of your seniors, one of your colleagues to get some advice on manuscript preparation, right? So that you can do. So why you want to publish your work? You need to self-evaluate by these 4 questions. You need to ask by yourself, is this new? Is this data interesting? It may be interesting to you, but it may not be interesting to somebody else. So you need to generally think, right? You need to think generally whether this data is interesting to somebody else, whether these data are new, and is it a current hot topic? Have you provided some solutions to a problem that you are seeing in this world? And are you ready to publish now? Right? So these questions you must ask from yourself and do a self-evaluation. Right? Then you can organize your scientific paper, which is very important. Right? So when you read a scientific paper, try to think whether these questions have they addressed. Right? When you have a scientific paper, there are four main sections: introduction, materials and methods, results and discussion, or results and discussion. So those are the four. So what is known by the introduction? You are working on a research, so you are trying to write it to the general public, right, or general scientific community. So what is your research question is meant by your introduction. So in the introduction, you are giving what the research question that you are focusing on, right? So if somebody is asking you, okay, you do a research. So what was the problem that you are discussing? That is the introduction of your paper, right? Then how did you study the problem? That is your materials and methods. How did you study, right? What was the problem that you were focusing on is in the introduction. How did you study that problem? How did you solve that problem? Is your materials and methods. And what did you find is results, right? What did you find is results. What those findings means is the most important part of your scientific paper is the discussion, right? Most of the time, the students just report their data, right? Just report their data. They say, okay, I have got this much of data from this experiment, and the mean was this, minimum is this, maximum was this, and that's it, right? So that doesn't show anything. You are just reporting your data. But in a scientific paper, you must tell the community, tell the reader what those data mean. That is the discussion. That is very important. You have to describe, you have to discuss what those data point means. So why did you get this kind of a mean? Have the other people in the literature, have they also got this kind of data? Can you compare the data with previous publications? If you can't compare, what is the reason? You may not know the reason, but you can suggest something. This may be because of that, right? That is the most important part of your paper, discussion. You need to discuss your data. Without discussing your data, the paper will not be published, right? Paper will not be accepted. So that is very important, okay? And then, so this is the structure of a research article. I'm sure you have gone through research articles. So you have seen title, abstracts, keywords. So that is the beginning. That is the selling part of your paper, right? Title, abstract, keywords. These are the things that is being taken by the indexing people. You know, like searching web, Google, Yahoo, they all take title, abstract, keywords. So that is the advertisement of your paper, right? Title, abstract, and keywords are the advertisement of your paper, right? Then it comes the introduction, materials and methods, results, and discussion. So that is the body of your journal article, right? Then it comes conclusion, acknowledgement, references, and many other data. Right? So let's move on with those. So in the process of writing, in my case, in my opinion, and in my practice, what I do in the beginning is I make the figures and tables. After you finish your research, right, the most easiest thing will be to prepare figures and tables. Because you have a set of data, you can tabulate them in Excel or whatever, and then you can make figures, bar charts, pie charts, whatever the way that you are analyzing the data. So make the figures and tables. When you make the figures and tables, you will understand the story that you are going to tell, right? So when you understand the story, you can easily write the materials and methods. You can write the results. You can discuss whatever the data with comparing with the previous literature. Right? Then you can move into conclusions and introduction. Right? The hardest section you have to write is title and abstract. You can write a long article. You can write a long thesis, but it will be very hard for you to write the abstract, which is about 150 words or 250 words. So keep it to the last minute. Keep it to the end. Title and abstract, you can easily write once all these are completed. Right? If you go write the title and abstract first, it will be little harder for you because you don't know the story. You don't know what are the highlights of your data for you to produce, for you to present. Right? So this is how I do. So you can choose, you can practice in your own way, right? So the structure of the paper, as I told you, once tables and figures are done, the storyline is confirmed. Right? When you have the story, you can write the materials and methods. How do you write the materials and methods? You have to describe how the experiments were carried out. So when you write a paper and when you write a thesis, materials and methodology is different. Right? In a thesis, you write almost all the details. But in a paper, you don't write all the details. Right? You write the most important details. Right? In the thesis, you may be writing like, you stir something with a magnetic stirrer and you stir it for 5 hours, and then you used a Whatman filter paper, you filtered, right? Or you centrifuged and then filtered, and then you kept it in the freezer, in the fridge, and then you put some other things, and then only you analyze. So these are, very detailed descriptions of materials and methodology in the thesis. But in the paper, you don't write like, you have, 5 hours stirring, you have to write, right? But you can just mention you stirred 5 hours. You don't need to write that you used a magnetic stirrer with a magnet or whatever. And then you don't need to write that, you have filtered it using, this kind of conical flask and this, right? And then you don't need to, say that you kept it for 5 hours or overnight, right? So you can, the most important aspect, most important steps you need to write. Why do you write the materials and methodology is to describe the way that you carry out the research. And somebody else, some of your juniors or some of your colleagues must be able to follow the materials and methodology in this particular paper and redo it. So for that, all the steps are not important, right? And then you are writing the results and discussion, right? How do you write the results and discussion? You need to logically organize the story using subheadings. You need to put subheadings and logically put the storyline. If you are a chemist, if you are a material scientist, you prepare some nanomaterials or some other composite, then you are characterizing that composite. So you first write the characterization step. Then you use the others, different segments. So that logic should be there. That flow should be there. And you need to present and discuss the results that you have, carrying out, right? You need to avoid speculation. You can't think, like, oh, this, maybe that has been happening. That kind of speculations you can't do, right? And you can discuss the weaknesses very briefly. You can suggest future research, okay, I have not carried out this particular aspect, but that can be done by the future researchers, right? And you need to discuss the implications, what these data mean to other people. What does this data gives to the science, right? Then you write the conclusion, you write an introduction, and you come into the abstract. So this is the way that the article writing structure is, the flow is, right? So this is very important for you to understand. In the conclusions, you explain the most highlighted data, right? Don't write anything else. The highlights of your study is being given in the conclusions, right? Conclusion and abstract are two different. I have seen some students writing the same sentences in conclusions and abstract, which is very wrong, right? Conclusion is so far different from the abstract. In the conclusions, you are showing the highlights from your data, highlights from your research. And then you need to show what research needs to be done in the future, right? And in the introduction, it is very important, okay? So try to focus and understand. In my research papers, I will have most of the time maximum 5 paragraphs. Most of the time I'm going for 4 paragraphs in the introduction, right? Those 4 paragraphs answer these 5 questions, right? The very first paragraph, I am explaining the problem that I am trying to solve. Broader sense, right? Secondly, second paragraph, I am showing what are the current solutions, right? When I am writing the current solutions, I am writing the literature. How the other people have tried to find the solutions for this problem. So what are existing solutions? So what are the maximum that, the best things that I have seen in the literature? So I'm showing, oh, this person has done this kind of a research and they have found this result. However, the other research group has found something different. So these kind of comparison I'm doing when I'm discussing the current solutions. right? And then the next paragraph, I'm saying which solutions are the best and what are the disadvantages of the other solutions, right? Then I'm coming to the next section, next paragraph, where I discuss the limitations of previous studies. What does that mean? The limitations of the previous studies means the gap analysis. You are analyzing the gap in the literature. That gap is your research question, right? So you are trying to answer, you are trying to find a solution for that gap, that limitation. That is the justification for your study. Before you are writing the objectives of your study, at the last part of your introduction, you must justify what is the need for you to study this. That is very important. That justification highlights the importance of your study to science, right? If you thoroughly give the justification strongly, then reviewers will understand, okay, this research is very important. And then it comes the objectives of your research. So from the objectives of your research, you will end the introduction, right? Then comes the abstract. Then you are writing the abstract. You are providing a summary of your research paper. So it's not the conclusions. In the conclusions, you are writing only the highlights, right? And the future research. But in the abstract is the summary of the whole research that you have written. So in the abstract, you have to give objectives. You have to briefly describe the research, the methodology. You have to write the results and discuss the most important data and then give a conclusion statement, right? So that means the summary of your paper is in the abstract, right? So these are the different sections of your research paper, and you are going to start writing, right? Language, you may think it is difficult because it is written in English. You might think my English is not good for writing a scientific research paper, but it is wrong, right? When you read a lot of papers for your literature review, you will understand the structure of the sentences. You will understand the structure of the paragraphs. You will understand how they are being written, right? So you just follow that structure. Very simple. Just follow that structure. That doesn't mean that you are copy pasting. Don't copy paste. That is wrong. Copy pasting is not ethical. But you need to follow the structure, right? Just follow the structure and the style, right? We are following a lot of people's styles, right? You are following a lot of people's styles. If somebody else, wears something new, no, we are tend to, okay, that's a nice dress. Okay, let's try that too. So we are following the style. We know that we have that in our way. So you need to follow the style. You need to follow the structure, right? So that's not hard. And remember, Microsoft Word has a lot of things that you can get benefited to your writing, right? One thing is Grammarly software. Grammarly software is free. So you can install it to your Word, Microsoft Word. Even when you install Grammarly, it will automatically correct your grammar, spelling. Even when you write a email, it will automatically correct your grammar and spelling, right? So have Grammarly installed in your computer. It's free. Then you can run Grammarly and understand how the scientific structure should be. Grammarly has general, academic, and many different ways. So you can select if it is a general write-up to writing for a newspaper, you can select general. If it is a research paper that you are writing, you can select academic style so that it will automatically change based on the selection. So it will make it easy for you to write English, right? So these things you can easily do. So why language is important? Because you need to write in a very clear manner. And you have to write in an objective manner. And whatever you are writing should be accurate, right? So you need to consider sentence construction, tenses, grammar, these things. So it is important. So what are the tips for you to write good scientific language? Just write direct and short sentences. That is very important. Don't try to write a long sentence by using different conjunctions. No, that is not good. Write direct sentences and short sentences. Right? And remember, when you write a sentence, just put one idea or one piece of information in one sentence. Don't try to merge two ideas in a sentence. Just one idea per sentence is sufficient, right? So avoid multiple statements in one sentence. So these two important aspects will give you, will lead you to write good sentences. Then when you prepare, let's move into preparing figures and tables. When you prepare figures and tables, try to spend some time refining the figures and tables. Right? You need to pay attention to details, especially when you prepare figures. Try to have contrasting colors, contrasting lines, contrasting symbols, so that the reader can easily distinguish, right? And don't write long tables, right? Just have a table maximum running for one page, right? And remember, the data in a figure should not be duplicated in the text. Data in the table should not be duplicated in the text. In the text, you are writing the most important data. You are giving the most important values only. Otherwise, you are generally discussing, right? But in the table, you are summarizing all the data. In the figures also, you are summarizing the graphs, right? You are summarizing your data in a graph, right? But don't write about each of these graph, bars or lines or table data in the text. In the text, you must give the most important things like the range, the minimum, the maximum, these kind of things, right? And remember that tables are used to report experimental results. Okay? Tables, we are preparing tables to report experimental results. Figures are used to compare experimental data. Right? So there are two different things. There are two different things. Table to report data from your experiments. Figures to show the differences between data. Right? And when you write figure, when you prepare the figures and tables, you need to prepare the titles or the captions for figures, captions for tables. In the table, captions is always on top of the table. In figures, caption is always down at the end of the figure. Right? So those two important to remember. Right? And remember, the figures and table should stand up by themselves without the text. So when you write the caption, write enough details for the reader to understand what this figure means. Right? So you can see, clearly in papers, figure captions, table captions are long. They are writing all the details. Legend even, they are explaining in the caption. Right? Because you need figures and tables to stand alone. Right? So when they stand alone, any reader can look at, scan through your figure and table and understand what you are meaning. Right? So that is very important. Right? And you need to show the figures and tables with good font sizes. So some of the figures, some of the tables, they don't have good font sizes. So we don't see what the fonts, the axis, all these details. Right? So figure, when you prepare figure, it is very important for you to put it into the Word document and see whether this font size is enough. Right? How does it look to the reader? So these are important. And let's move into how to prepare the title. It's very important. Title is very important. Why? Title sells your paper. Right? Title sells your paper. Right? Because it will be the most frequent thing which will be read by many people. Because it will go into the index, it will be going into the search. Right? So title is important. That is the label of your work, label of your research. Right? I told you, title, abstract, and keywords are the advertisement of your research. So among those three, title is the label of your research. It is not a sentence. Remember, it is not a sentence. Title doesn't have subject, verb, object, all these things. Title doesn't have. Title is a label. It is a phrase. It is not a sentence. Right? So it is very important for you to choose the words that you are using into a title. Right? In my opinion, a title must have less than 20 words. Less than 20 words. Don't put more than 20 words into a title. Right? And then don't put waste words in title. Right? Waste words. Yeah, waste words. Don't put waste words in a title. And don't put abbreviations and jargons. Jargons means technical term, very technical terms, don't put. Abbreviations don't use in a title. Okay. And it should be, fewest possible words, as I told you, less than 20 words. Okay. And the effective title must identify the research question that you are planning to address. And it should begin with the subject of the paper, right? It should be accurate, unambiguous, specific, and complete, right? Short titles, but it should be catchy titles, right? Don't use waste words. What are the waste words? Don't put an assessment, investigation, effect, these kind of things, a study. Don't use these kind of words in the title. We all know it is a study. It is a study. We all know you are going to discuss about an effect. We all know it is going to be an investigation, right? So don't repeat those things. Since you have only 20 words or less, so try to choose the most, catchy words to make a good title, right? Then how to list authors. This is also very important. You might think that authors can be, like any people who will help your research will become an author. These three different terms you have to understand well. Author, co-author, and contributor. Author has the major contribution, he or she puts the major contribution to the study or to the research, right? Author drafts the paper, right? He must approve the final version. And author is accountable for everything inside that paper, right? And who are co-authors, right? Co-authors will not be contributing significantly. Co-author may be your supervisor. Supervisor is a co-author, right? And if there is a person who will help you for significant manner, then that person will be a co-author, right? Who are the contributors? Contributors are people who are funding your research, maybe who will support your research. Maybe they will support, give you some chemicals, so give you some chance to carry out, their research, your research using their instrument. Likewise. So these contributors, they won't be authors. They won't be co-authors. They won't be the author. But who is the first author? Right? First author is the lead author who does the experiment, who writes the first draft. That is the lead author. So if you do the experiment, if you write the paper, the first draft, you will be the lead author. If the idea is from your supervisor, and supervisor deals with the journal, so that supervisor will be the corresponding author. Submitting author, corresponding author is the same. Sometimes last author will be the leader of your research group, who is your supervisor. In my case, if my student does the research, though I give the idea to the student to carry out the research, student will do the research, student will write the first draft, I will be submitting as the corresponding author to the journal, and I will, most of the time, I will be the last author. You understand? But if you do the research, if your supervisor writes the first draft, then the supervisor will be the first author. Supervisor has the right to be the first author because supervisor writes the first draft. So what you should do? You should write the first draft. Don't let your supervisor to write the first draft. You are the one who put a lot of effort into writing. No, to carry out the experiment, to do analysis, to interpret the data, to make the graphs, tables, and everything. So put them in writing. Then you will be the first author. Supervisor will be the corresponding author. And there are gift authorships, ghost authorships, mutual authorships, support authorships, cohesion authorships. Those are unethical authorships. Unethical authorships. There can be, you can gift authorship to somebody, some of your colleague, your husband, your wife, some of your friend, supervisor's friend. Ghost authorship, somebody else would come into the paper, jump in by the supervisor. Mutual support. You might put your colleague as the co-author because you guys have mutual support. Cohesion authorship, you threat to somebody to put yourself into the author list. So these are unethical authorships. Okay? Listing addresses is easy. You write your affiliation based on the the author guidelines given in the paper, in the journal, right? So from abstract to conclusions, I will cover tomorrow. I hope it will be okay. So today I gave the basic introduction for you to write scientifically. This will be very helpful for you to write a thesis, even write a paper, right? So this is the background information on scientific writing. So you can ask any questions you have now. We can discuss for like 10-15 minutes, and then we'll meet tomorrow to go ahead with abstract to the conclusions. Okay. Any questions? You have any questions in the chat box? If you have any questions, you can put in the chat box even.
Madam, still we don't have questions in the chat box.
Okay.
But if you have any question, you can ask.
Yeah, go ahead. Somebody was trying to talk.
Excuse me, madam.
Yes.
Madam, because of this COVID-19 pandemic situation.
Yeah. You're not clear, Kamil.
If we cannot do a research with the article affect that in our career or higher studies. Hello.
Yes,
Hello,
Kamil.
Madam, because of this pandemic situation, if we cannot do a research with the lab work, and how about writing a review article and how affect that in our career or higher studies? I mean, madam, when we are applying for the higher studies, how about validity of that review article?
No issue. There is no difference. Review article is, some people are discussing that, it is not possible for you to write a review article without doing doing background research. But it is not like that. When you write a review article, you get the background knowledge. And if your review article is being published in a considerable good journal, definitely you will be considered as a potential writer. So that particular review article will have the same weight as a research paper publication for a scholarship. No difference. But only thing is, you must have a good quality review article published in a good journal. Don't publish in predatory journals, okay? So predatory journals, if you publish in a predatory journals, that will be totally wrong thing for whole your lifetime. So if you publish in a good, even a local journal, good quality journal, if you can go for an international quality journal, then definitely it will be considered as a good publication for you. Even book chapter will be considered as a good publication for you to, when you apply for a scholarship, for sure.
Okay, thank you, madam.
So someone has asked a question, what is the difference between research paper and thesis? As I told you earlier, writing the methodologies, thesis is very descriptive, right? Thesis is very descriptive. You can write many different things. But a research paper is very concise. And thesis, it may be not giving novel information, but a research paper must give novel significant information to the science. Very concise. Research paper is like 8,000 words maximum. But a thesis is like, I don't know, 50,000 words maybe, 50 pages maybe. But a research article, if you write a Word document with 2 double line spacing, maximum 35 pages, 40 pages maximum, a research article. But a thesis, for sure, more than 50 pages, 100. Yes. Any other questions?
Madam?
Yeah?
Is there a difference between the introduction of a review article and a thesis?
Thesis or a paper?
Thesis introduction and review article introduction?
Yeah, a thesis introduction, it may be very wider, broader, and it depends on the institution that you are submitting your thesis. As an example, University of Peradeniya, Postgraduate Institute of Science, if you are submitting a MPhil thesis, MSc thesis, or PhD thesis, their introduction has literature review also, right? But most of the other places, introduction is different, and the chapter 2 is the literature review. But in the case of a paper or a review article, introduction has literature review also, right? Especially for a research paper, introduction has the literature review. I told you, right? The very first paragraph is giving the general background of the you are discussing the research problem. Second paragraph, you are discussing the current context. In the current context, you are discussing the literature review, right? Even a review paper, it's similar. You are briefly discussing the content in the introduction, right? But in a thesis, it is broad. In a thesis, it is like, you can write 4 or 5 pages an introduction. But in a research paper, in a review article, it's only 2 pages, I would say, an introduction should be.
Thank you, madam.
And chat, madam, can we have some few tips on how to do literature review in an effective way? Yeah. Literature review in an effective manner, the best thing is that will be a long lecture again, but I will summarize here. When you go through 100 papers, the very first thing is how you save that paper, right? You are downloading 100 papers, let's say. First, you have to save it in a manner that you can easily recall the paper, right? So save it with the, like, let's say you are downloading my paper, Vithanage et al. 2020, right? 2020. So save it in that way, Vithanage et al. 2020, and one or two words what this particular paper discusses, so that you understand, you can right away by looking at, okay, this is the paper I was looking at, right? After the literature review, because when you are citing the literature, you will not remember. Then you have to summarize the data in these different 100 articles into few tables in Excel based on what you are looking for, right? So prepare a long table, big table, and summarize each of the papers best particular data that you are looking at. The most important data you can summarize, right? And then at the last column, you put the reference. So it's easy for you to track, right? And the other thing is, you can't read 100 papers, right? You can't read and memorize, right? So the best thing is you read the abstract first, conclusions first, then you will understand whether this paper is with an interest for you or not, right? Otherwise, you can't read the whole paper and so how many papers? 100 papers? How many days? Right? So first read the abstract, try to get the data to your table from that abstract, put the reference, right? And if you don't see whatever you are looking at, even you think that this paper will be interesting, then go ahead and read the conclusions, right? Then you would understand whether this particular paper has some importance in my work or not. If it is important, you can dig into research and discussion and get the necessary information, right? So these are some of the tips that I can give you by carrying out a literature review. But most importantly, don't just report, right? Vithanage et al. Has found that landfill leachate has these pollutants. Don't report. That is reporting. Try to compare and contrast. Vithanage et al. Has found that landfill leachate has, in Sri Lanka, has nitrates levels in 1000 milligram per liter. However, Jensen et al. In Denmark have found out their leachate has lesser nitrates. That kind of a comparison, that kind of a contrast will give a lot of things to the reader, right? So your review will be published easily and your literature review will be very strong, right? So don't report. So I have seen many students have done, Pereira et al. Have reported this value and some values given and cited Jayasindra et al. That is mere reporting. Mere reporting is totally, nonsense. No point. You are just spending time. So try to compare and contrast and criticize. Criticize in a positive manner. You say, okay, these people have published this data, very interesting data. However, they have not addressed this particular thing. That kind of constructive criticism should be there in your literature review. Okay. Any other questions? So tomorrow, is it okay for you to discuss similarly, like how to write the abstract, how to write the materials and methodology, how to write the research and discussion section, how to write the conclusions, and little bit of ethics maybe. Is that okay, or do you need me to go through and show you how to cite the references and so on? I think those are easy things. There are a lot of videos available in how to use Mendeley kind of software, free softwares to cite references and so on. So you can easily follow those things. I can give tips on how to write the abstract, how to write the materials and methods, right? These kind of things I can give you the tips. Okay?
Yes, madam.
Is that fine?
Yes, madam. I think that will be beneficial for all of us.
Okay.
Madam, is there any question from the audience? Any more questions?
Madam, I have a small one.
Yeah.
What sort of a difference between a mini review and a review article? Is it just the content wise difference?
Yeah, Naveen, it is like a review article, a full review article. You would have 100 plus references that you are discussing. And that can be a broader context, like that article, that review article might be, looking at a broader subject. But a mini review will be a very specific subject, since you don't have many articles, like no 100 articles published in that particular study area. Then you will write a mini review, which is about 75, 50 references, right? And the article size is smaller than the full review. So mini review is written most of the time when you don't have many publications from that particular subject area. Okay. Let's say, like, as an example, if you consider like marine disasters like express burn, so there's not many articles. So you can write a mini review. But let's say it's about plastic pollution, hundreds of papers, so that you can write a full review. Likewise. Any other questions? All right. Helene, shall we wind up then?
Yes, madam. I think there are no more questions. Madam, actually, I won't say that we didn't feel that we have spent near 1.5 hours with you, madam. Actually, that was a very important session. From the point to point, you have clearly described how to do this, how to skip those mistakes and all the things. Madam, thank you very much for that. I invite all the participants to join with us in tomorrow session. It will continue the things that madam said. And madam, thank you again for joining with us and explaining all the things that we want to improve our career as a researcher. And again, I thank you on behalf of the Lions Club of Lions Club of Colombo Century and the Dear Club of Colombo New Century, for joining with us, madam. Be safe and good
thank
day
you
for
very
all of
much.
you.
Thank you very much. If you have questions, you can bring up for tomorrow. Maybe we can have a 15 minutes session for revising. And if you have any questions, we can discuss tomorrow as well from today's lecture. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting. Have a good night and stay safe.
Thank you very much, madam.
See you
Good night.
tomorrow. Good night.
Thank you, madam, and stay safe.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, madam.
Thank you, madam.